Welcome to FCP Euro. Here we are in the Motorsport Garage. This is where we house our two Volkswagen GTI TCRs, as well as our C300 Endurance Racer right behind me. Now what's special about this space is this is actually part of our headquarters. So right to the right we have our retail center where enthusiasts come in every day to come pick up the parts they need to repair their European car. And what's even better is right behind us is our distribution center. This is where thousands of packages are picked, packed, and shipped every single day to enthusiasts like you around the world. Now, this year has been a little different for us. Due to COVID, we've stayed safe and we've stayed here and we haven't participated in events. That said, we have tried to participate from afar, either digitally or dipping our toes into e-racing and other things like that. Now, next year, we cannot wait to get back out into events and meet all of you in person. So if you just want to browse parts for your European car, or you want to learn more about our motorsports team, please head over to fcpeuro.com.
Get ready for it. Get ready for it. Get ready for it. Yeah, this is it. Go! 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 Yeah, this is it. Go! Let's go! Yeah, this is it. Ready for it. Yeah, this is it. Go! Go! Yeah, this is it. Go! Let's go! This is it.
It's the beginning of a new year, and with many of the world's motorsport series about to kick off for 2021, the FCP Euro GT World Challenge America Esports Championship comes to a close. After 4 sprint races and a 6-hour endurance race at Spa-Francorchamps, this is the fifth and final round of the season at Imola. 60 minutes, 40 drivers, and one final shot to claim a championship. Good afternoon and welcome to the FCP Euro GT World Challenge America Esports Championship. My name is Kyle Heyer, joined as always by Ryan Marine for our fifth and final points round of the season. Ryan's super excited to get underway at a brand new racetrack here in Assetto Corsa Competizione, Imola, and this is a great place to contend our season championship.
Yeah, it's a perfect setting, no doubt about that, Kyle. Thank you so much, and what a season it has been. We already have our champion-elect in the GT4 class in Norcavione after a tremendous season up to this point, but it's wide open in GT3, and as you said, a perfect venue to crown a champion, a new venue to Assetto Corsa Competizione, going back to the latest DLC, but Imola is one of the classics of the European sports car racing scene and just racing in general. This is one of those tracks, you say the name and it conjures up all these emotions. It's going to put on a great show for us, I suspect, as well.
Absolutely, and a huge thank you to our series partners, of which there are many. A huge thanks to FCP Euro, Liqui Corteco, Asus Republic of Gamers, and Tough Gaming, Fanatec, AWS, CrowdStrike, Pirelli, Rebellion Timepieces, and Total for supporting the FCP Euro GT World Challenge America Esports Championship. Qualifying is underway for our fifth and final 60-minute round. GT4 cars are up first, and one of the cars we're watching right now in Norcavione, Ryan, in the number 56. Super solid for that Jean Alesi Esports Academy team, and I'm expecting another victory today. Just judging by past history, I think that's a pretty safe bet.
That's right. I think based on the performance up to this point, Norcavione has established herself as the favorite. That's why she is the champion-elect coming into this round. Did not get the win the last time out, had some bad luck, but put in an amazing recovery drive to still get up on the podium after being at the back of the pack at the end of lap number 1 in our last race at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. Hopefully she could avoid any kind of troubles along those lines here at Imola, but she has been so fast in this package of a Norcavione in this Porsche 718 Cayman has been the package to beat. And even when she couldn't win, it was her teammate in a similar Porsche that got the win, Mia Rose, last time out. And I would not be surprised one bit to see those two up at the top once again.
First lap times in the books, and looks like Mia Rose to the top of the board at 154.39, 2.5 tenths up from Fisher. That is the second place car at the moment. Simon Fisher in the 595, also on the Porsche platform. And we always talk about multi-class racing, multi-make racing, the differences between the cars. I know it's early here, Ryan, but 3 Porsches at the top of the board. That tells me that Cayman platform might be the one to have this afternoon.
It certainly looks that way so far, but I think Norcavione has really made that platform look exceptionally good over the course of this season, and maybe her abilities have perhaps made it less obvious about the strengths of some of the other cars in the GT4 field, because we've seen in international competition the BMW rise to the top, the Audi has been strong, Aston Martin has been well represented, the list goes on, but all season long here in this championship it has been the Porsche, whether it's been Rose or Cavione. Fisher has been fast as well and is one of the drivers, I believe, that has a chance in the fight for second in points, so we'll keep an eye on them. But Caleb John Lavender has been very much in the mix as well. The top non-Porsche to this point were on board on this Audi R8 LMS GT4. Very fast car, good driver as well, and looking for a breakthrough win to close out the season.
Absolutely. Caleb John Lavender has experience in a bunch of different sims as we see some precipitation on the racetrack. A little bit cloudy in the skies this afternoon here, Ryan, and this is going to throw, you already see a car turned around there. The precipitation on slick tires, that's going to be a very treacherous situation. That is the 335 car, Verena May, turned around at the exit of the chicane. So I'd expect that drivers might want to come down and get wets before this session ends if they want to qualify towards the front. This just threw a huge wrench into things.
It really did, and here's the other thing to think about. Even if they do go out on wets, most likely the times set in the dry earlier are going to be good enough, and that could mean that Mia Rose will have the pole here. I would be very surprised, unless it dries out once again, that anyone would be able to go faster, even if they were on the appropriate wet weather tires. Not sure just how damp the track is, but that might have given us some indication. Juan Reynoso got outside on some of the painted curbs, sent him right around as soon as he got onto power. And keep in mind, some of these cars, these Maseratis in particular, don't have very sophisticated or any traction control in the case of the Maserati, and certainly these GT4 cars have a lot less in the way of driver aids than the GT3s we're going to see in just a little bit. So it's going to be a handful, especially if this weather keeps up. We were kind of talking off air that, hey, maybe it'll rain. That could be interesting, and we weren't really expecting it to happen, but it very well might based on what we're seeing here so far. Certainly it will be wet in qualifying.
Watching JT Tammy wrestle this Maserati, this is an interesting discussion. You mentioned the lack of driver aids. I believe that these Maseratis don't even have any kind of anti-lock braking system, so that's going to be
correct.
an enormous disadvantage for this entire afternoon if it continues to rain. And this is one of those moments where you had wished that you had picked a different car for this, but you can't always know what the weather is going to do, and this is going to make JT Tammy's life and Juan Reynoso's life very difficult. You see him wrestling that car down the back straightaway here.
Those cars are hard to drive even under the best of circumstances, and when it's raining like it is at Imola at the moment, these are not the best of circumstances by any stretch of the imagination. I think we will see the talent come to the top, though. The best car control, the smoothest drivers will excel in the rain, especially if they have some experience at this track in the rain before. I'll be curious to talk to some of these drivers afterwards and to see if those that have had success have had any previous rain racing experience here on this circuit, which is, again, one of the more treacherous road racing circuits left in Europe. There's not a lot of runoff room in a lot of these corners. In many respects, it is a throwback to a bygone era, and there are a lot of heart-in-your-throat type corners around this track that take high commitment because of the high speeds, and as a consequence, there are high consequences if things go wrong. So I think this is going to be extra fascinating for us if the rain holds up.
There's Joseph Kosovich coming across the line in his Aston Martin GT4, and again, I think rain racing takes an entirely different skill set than driving in the wet, or driving in the dry, I should say, and what it's going to do is it's going to make the talent level really shine through. Now, these drivers have a lot of opportunity to adjust setups and that sort of thing, so the teams that spend more time kind of sciencing out their setups, you can throw most of that out the window now. It's just going to come down to who can control their cars the best. Of course, the GT3 cars, who we're going to see here qualify in a few minutes, they're going to have the same struggles here, but they're going to know it's raining, where these guys started qualifying in the wet, and the drivers that went out early, like Mia Rose and Honor Cavillon, were able to get some dry laps in, and that was a big advantage.
That's a huge point. I think you're exactly right, first of all, about those that went out early, as we talked about earlier, but then for the GT3 drivers, they had a chance to see this, and they're seeing these GT4 cars slipping and sliding around, and you better believe they're going back to the setup pad, the virtual setup pad, and making some changes on these cars. You can do some things with the suspension to give yourself a bit more travel, to be more compliant in the wet conditions. You'll definitely pack on some more downforce to help you out. So there are some things that can be done in game, and again, I think you bring up a great point. Those that have put some time into developing their rain racing setup are going to be advantaged in this scenario, and they'll have something that they can go to right away that's tried and true, whereas I suspect there are others that are trying to figure it out on the fly, and that's a difficult proposition to be sure.
Into the braking zone now, you see the tiptoeing that you have to do to make this happen. These tight corners, along with the wide painted curbing that you have here at Imola, and of course the Assetto Corsa Competizione simulates the difference in grip between the pavement and the runoff areas and the curbing, Ryan, and with that paint, it's going to make it very, very slick. So you're probably going to keep it on the blacktop for the most part. If you run a little bit wide, that's probably all right, but as soon as you touch that painted curbing, you're going to have a hard time holding onto the car, even with traction control.
Yeah, the paint obviously has a lot less grip to it in the wet in particular than the unpainted asphalt. And there are a couple of these corners here where the dry line definitely includes using some of the painted road, and you're going to have to adjust accordingly here as we see the GT3 cars make to the track for the first time. I think they will be less affected by this for a couple of reasons. One being the more sophisticated driver aids that the GT3 cars have, but also, and perhaps more importantly, the downforce that they carry. And a lot of times, especially in lower level racing where the cars aren't packing quite so much of downforce, you'll see drivers going off of what the traditional racing line would be to run a wet line. And many times the GT3 cars don't have to do that, and I think the reason for it is just how much downforce they create. But there are going to be places here where drivers are going to be looking for grip, trying some different things out, and again, adjusting to stay off the paint as much as possible, at least with any kind of steering input locked in, that's what these drivers are going to be trying to do to keep the platform nice and balanced underneath them.
We've had one rain race this season, and think back to the 6 hours of Spa that we did earlier in the season. It was our second round of the year, not a points round, but that rained for the entire duration of the race. Now, we only have a 60-minute event here today, so I think the chances that it remains rainy for the entire event is pretty high. And that means that this is going to totally change your strategy. I doubt that the drivers really knew that this was going to happen, so they're going to have to adjust on the fly, Ryan. And I don't think that you can expect it to go away. So I think you're going to pick wets right from the very beginning, and you're going to have to be cautious about making a mistake because you're probably not going to get much of an opportunity to make it up unless somebody else in front of you makes a mistake. So cars across the line to start their flying laps. There's Matthew Marlowe in the CMS Pro Team in that Lamborghini Huracan GT3. Good-looking car there through the first section of the racetrack, that left-right combination. You mentioned the wet line. We didn't see a ton of that here or at Spa, but I wonder if we're going to see more of it here at Imola today, staying off the inside of the slicked-up part of the racetrack, especially as the track gets rainier and wetter.
That's something I'm going to be watching for sure. I think this qualifying session also, Kyle, took on an additional level of importance because you want to get a clean start to this race for obvious reasons, and especially in the wet when you have the spray to contend with. And Assetto, of course, it does such a great job of modeling that spray when you're stuck in it. Maybe you're not so happy that they did such a good job modeling it, but for us, it looks fantastic. Boy, this is some wild stuff. Sam Cairns all over those curves. He's had a couple of wild rides in that Bentley. It's going to be fascinating to see, but I think our points leaders right now, and it is wide open in GT3. There are several drivers that have a chance at this championship before it's all said and done. We can talk more about that in just a moment, but they're going to be feeling the pressure right now to put in a good qualifying lap, try and get a nice clean starting position to minimize the risk that they will be in at the start of this race. And one last thing I wanted to bring up, you mentioned, yeah, you're going to start on the wet tires. We do not normally do pit stops in this championship. However, if it were to dry out mid-race, think about that wrench thrown into the equation, and in the championship deciding race, at that's going to really up the ante for these drivers and their teams that are behind them to make the right strategic decisions. That maybe that's not a huge part of the conversation normally, but it certainly is going to be this week.
Well, you mentioned the points championship. We're going to discuss that as soon as qualifying is over. We'll show you the layout as it is and what the possible scenarios could be. Of course, GT3, it's extraordinarily close, and we'll follow that throughout the day. We'll also show you the track guide, and we'll highlight some key areas, especially in the wet. We'll see Nelson Mason, the provisional pole sitter, loop it around in turn number 7. Before he climbs up the hill. Elevation change is pretty significant here at Imola, Ryan, and that's going to cause the rain to pool in specific areas, and that means that we're going to see some puddling, and there's going to be some very treacherous spots in this racetrack that everyone is going to have to avoid. We saw that at Spa. Think at the top of Radillon. We saw that big puddle form, and drivers had to drive through it. We're going to see probably 4 or 5 of those similar scenarios here at this racetrack.
A lot of elevation change at Imola. Nelson Mason spinning at the Tosa hairpin there, which is very much at the bottom of the hill. He's taking the car off track now. I think probably just going to reset back to pit lane. But that Tosa hairpin leads to a pretty major climb all the way up to Acqua Minerale, and then you plunge back down the hill after you get through the Variante Alta chicane down to Ravazza towards the end of the lap, and then you start that climb back up again right after Tamburello. So this track is full of it. It's a really unique track layout, like I said, kind of a throwback to days gone by in a lot of respects. It was so cool to see it host a Formula One Grand Prix once again for the first time in quite a long time, nearly 2 decades. Earlier this year, but it's been a great home for sports cars for a very long time, and I think these GT3 cars and GT4 cars in the wet are going to be absolutely thrilling to watch over the course of this race.
Before we conclude qualifying here, a reminder that Asus Tough Gaming is doing a giveaway paired with Fanatec to give away 2 sim rigs with custom Asus Tough Gaming 3080 GPUs, same GPU running this live stream, and AMD CPUs. You can check out where to enter and how to enter at the GT World Challenge America social media networks, whether that's Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, or here in the YouTube chat, whether you're watching on Twitch, wherever you're watching, make sure that you enter to get a chance to win one of those sim rigs with Fanatec and Asus Tough Gaming gear. Trust me, you're going to want to do that and get yourself the opportunity. Looks like White flag there for a slow-moving vehicle. That was Cody Blanton coming to a stop. He's fourth in qualifying. Troy Barman in the 191 Mercedes goes up to second quick. Josh Staffen in the 23 car has gone to the top of the board. He is in his Lexus. We talked about the different platforms in GT4. I'm curious to see how much that's going to matter here in GT3. Of course, a lot of mid-engine and front-engine platforms. A couple Porsches out there with the rear-engine platform. I guess I feel like I'd had an advantage if I was in a Porsche, but we don't have a whole lot of them in the field. Jason Alexandridis is in one of those towards the tail end right now, but a lot of different platforms here in GT3, and I guess rain is really going to separate the performance level, especially in the acceleration grip area.
Yeah, the rear-engine Porsche typically does excel in conditions like these. We've seen that at Spa over the last couple of years as Staffen gets into the back of one of the FCP Euro cars. I think Staffen was on a flyer there, and the car in front of him maybe was not, and that caused that miscommunication. So that's going to be costly because it might rob Staffen of a chance to improve his qualifying position. He had a really good lap not so long ago, but has dropped back a little bit and now really won't have a chance to defend. But yeah, this Porsche typically with that rear engine configuration, the engine over the drive wheels, this is a tried and true configuration, especially in the wet. But like you said, not a ton of Porsches in this field, so maybe we won't get a chance to see the German brand represented towards the front of the field like we would expect when it rains. That just is something that we've seen for decades at this point.
Here is one of the FCP Euro Mercedes. That is Nate Vincent in the number 72. His teammate Michael Herzen is here as well. He is on an outlap in that number 71. The FCP Euro boys have some experience running in the real world. They're also very experienced at running in the rains. This might be an advantage to them. And Nate Vincent comes across the line here. We'll see if he logs a lap at the top of the board. A 1:55.482 will put him 28th quick overall, but 17th in class as he comes across the line. Chris Forsberg is here as well, the Asus Republic of Gamers Forsberg Racing Nissan GTR. He'll come across the line. He's got a teammate out there as well, and looking down the order to find that car. But
Ryan Highcutter's up in 11th.
There he is.
Like. Yes. Our GT Rivals champion from back in the spring. You would think that these would be conditions that he would have encountered at one point or another in his sim racing career. Hasn't been the season he's been looking for. 6th in points, had a 0 points outing in the second round of the championship at the Nürburgring and really hasn't been able to recover, but still with an outside shot at a top 3 finish in the points if he can put it all together here at Imola.
Car running wide in the background off the edge of the racetrack. Again, very slippery, especially in the slower areas of this place. Troy Barman has just gone to the top of the board. A 1:48.567 puts him in front of Josh Staffen by 0.06 of a second. Hamza Gulzar, who has had some really strong qualifying efforts. Think back to Monza a couple rounds ago. He's currently third. Lucas with a K, Muller, in that number 44 car has gone fourth quick. Cody Blanton in fifth, and they've all been shifted down one as Nelson Mason comes across and goes up fourth quick with a 1:49.137.
Nelson Mason has been fast all season long and has no result to show for it. It's really a shame. He's been up towards the front seemingly in every race, but is mired way back in points just because things have not broke his way. But you mentioned that lap by Barman to put him on provisional pole. That is huge. He is second in the championship coming in, 9 points behind Kadacioglu, who is the championship leader. And Kadacioglu now up to third. That was a big lap from him because he was down towards the bottom half of the top 10 until just a moment ago. Now jumps up into third with his last flying lap, and that definitely goes a long way to mitigate any damage done should Barman stick that car on pole.
Lucas Muller in the Haupt Racing Team 44 is also up 0.4 of a second. Cody Blanton is up 0.9 of a second on this flying lap. We'll see if he can get back to the stripe before qualifying is over. He's on the front straight right now, so we should see a pretty sizable jump here for Cody Blanton. Right now scored 7th with a 49.275. He could jump up inside the top 5 with this lap, and he will jump to pole. Cody Blanton, top of the board, 1:48.231.
And that's another championship contender, albeit maybe an outside championship contender. Really, Barman and Kadacioglu have the 2 best chances. Blanton is 15 points out of the lead in third, and so would need bad luck for both Kadacioglu and Barman if he was going to overcome that deficit. But it is really, really close. Second, third, fourth, fifth, all of those drivers are separated by just 8 points coming in, and many of them are up towards the top here in qualifying. The one outlier is Nick McMillan, the winner last time out at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca, 4th in points, one of our championship contenders, all the way back, though, in 17th in qualifying. He won't be happy with that result.
Well, these are shots from earlier in the day. The sun in the sky and the little bit of clouds has given way to quite the rainy afternoon, and it's only getting worse. About 20% wet out there. Still lots of opportunity for it to get significantly rainier throughout the rest of the day. I'd expect that to be the case as well. Let's go through our starting lineup here for this race. There's Cody Blanton. Again, you mentioned top of the board by 0.3 of a second over Barman, Staffen, and Kondakshilu. Your pick to win in GT3 today, Ryan, not only in this race but also the championship, which we'll look at the points here in a moment.
Well, Kondakshilu comes in certainly as the favorite in points, and I'm going to say he's not the favorite to win this race because he doesn't need to win the championship. So I'm looking at Blanton or Barman to pull off the race win, although I do think Staffen, despite not really being in the championship picture, showed just how strong he is, especially in the wet. And if it stays wet, I think he's got a very good chance for that Lexus to shine. I'm going to say Barman gets it done because he's the most desperate. He's got the best chance at catching Kondakshilu as far as the points are concerned, but a win really is what he's looking for in order to make that happen. So he's got every incentive to go for it. I expect that's what we'll see from him.
Shifting down to find 11th overall, Mia Rose in the 956 Porsche 718 Cayman GT4, top of the board for Mia. Looking down the order there, Norcavion's hard to root against, but Mia Rose, with how successful Mia was at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca, I'd have to pick Mia to win this race this afternoon. But, of course, Norcavion in the championship, I think that's the story we'll be following all day long. Other drivers to watch, perhaps, you could probably throw Simon Fisher in there in that other Porsche 718 Cayman GT4 in that 595 car. He'll roll off in 3rd in that GT4 category. Caleb John Lavender going to roll off in 5th in the 999. Another driver to watch. Let's go and have a look here at the points. Let's start with GT4 here, Ryan. Having a look, 113 points for Norcavion, looking pretty solid for her.
Yes, so she has clinched this championship mathematically already. We can call her the champion-elect. Congratulations on a great season, and now she's just out there trying to win another race. If she can do it, it would be her 4th on the season. She's yet to finish off the podium in the GT4 class, but look how tight it is for 2nd in this championship. Caleb John Lavender's got the edge at the moment, but there are no guarantees when we're talking about 5 drivers separated by 7 points from 2nd all the way down into the 6th spot, maybe down to 7th actually. So really, really close there. The competition in GT4 for 2nd place has been really good because Honora has kind of stolen the show to this point in the season, but I think adding Mia Rose into the mix will spice things up a little bit. She's shown incredibly well in GT World Challenge Asia Esports Championship competition, a teammate to Norcavion, and I think those two could really put on a show for us today, along with Simon Fisher.
Moving over to the GT3 Championship standings, Michael Kondakshilu leads by 9 points over Troy Barman. Looking fairly good for Kondakshilu. However, I would be a bit concerned if I make a mistake today if I'm Michael. Troy Barman and Cody Blanton are not too far behind. And Nick McMillan is right there as well, so it could get a little spicy if Kondakshilu has a bad day today.
And he has to be aware of that because the last 2 rounds have not gone well. After scoring 56 points in the first 2 races, he scored just 24 in the subsequent 2. In the last race, had a decent qualifying effort but got tagged on the opening lap of the race there at Laguna Seca, dropped back not just to the back of the GT3 field, but to the GT4 field as well, came flying back up through the field, was able to put together a decent result, finishing inside the top 10, scored 13 points in that race when it looked like it could be a write-off, and that really salvaged his championship hopes. He still comes in, as you see, with a 9-point lead, but to your point, it all can go wrong, and it can go wrong very quickly. So Troy Barman has done what he needs to do in qualifying. Same for Cody Blanton. McMillan's got a ton of work to do. Lucas Muller is in the mix, and Brian Highcutter is way, way back there. So I think we're looking at the top 3 in points as the 3 most likely to come away with the championship, and obviously with the 9-point edge, Kondakshilu controls this conversation to some extent, but you never know what will happen. It's going to be a wild hour, and can't wait to see it, especially if the rain continues.
And a huge, huge thank you to the partners for the FCP Euro GT World Challenge America Esports Championship that have come on board and made this entire thing possible. Looking forward to a really exciting 2021 esports season all year round. FCP Euro, Liquimali, Corteco, Asus, Fanatec, of course, Champion Motorsports for helping us out, AWS, CrowdStrike, Pirelli, Rebellion, Total, and Assetto Corsa Competizione. We also are hearing that we need to sort out the GT3 and GT4 as they've sort of qualified together, so we'll take you back there in a moment. In the meantime, let's have a look here at our track map here, Ryan, and of course, Imola is a beautiful racetrack. Take me through what it takes to go around a lap here.
I love this place, both driving it in the sim, but also it's a place I got to visit myself back in 2017, and it blew me away. Absolutely adore the place. It's certainly gone through some changes since it debuted back in 1953, hosted its first points-paying F1 Grand Prix in 1980, but a lot of the character remains. It is fast, it is high commitment, and as I said earlier, high consequence. Not a lot of runoff in a lot of these corners. Tamburello, so famous and infamous, depending on how you think about it, has been changed subsequent to that tragic weekend in 1994 with the chicane there, but still a real challenge. Leads you up into turn 7, which is the Tosa hairpin, a really good braking zone and passing opportunity there. Then it's the run up the hill, very fast at Piratella, Aqua Minerale, one of the more complex corners you'll ever run into. Fast and challenging to say the least, into another great passing zone in Variante Alta, and the final couple of corners, Ravazza 1 and Ravazza 2, 17 and 18, crucial corners because they lead you on to that pit straight here at Imola in the northeastern part of Italy, a classic track that brings all kinds of memories and emotions when you think about it. The name basically says it all. You say Imola, and any race fan knows exactly what you're talking about.
Well, Carl Whitmer is going to take us through a lap here at Imola. We'll return with the green flag for the 5th and final round of the 2020 FCP Euro GT World Challenge America Esports Championship. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Carl Whitmer, HPD GT3 Academy driver, and here's the Honda Performance Development track preview in the number 22 Acura NSX GT3 Evo. Crossing the line here at the legendary Imola, you'll notice that the track is quite narrow all the way around. So we go through turn 1, it's a long left bend. We want to set up for turn 2 on the right side. Spot the little strip of tarmac, hard on the brakes, down the second gear, balance the car through the first sequence of corners, and full throttle and exit through turn 4. And use all the curbing towards the Villeneuve S's. Now the S's, this is maximum commitment. Big corner entry, big threshold brake zone all the way in, use the rolling speed, exit the curb on turn 6, maximize everything down to turn 7. This is going to be the biggest passing zone. Brake at the 50 board, we want to use all the grip. Once we feel like we have enough, we go full gas, full throttle, use the TC systems, climbing up to the hill. This is going to be a blind crest, so we want to set up on the right side. Turn in, use all the curbing through Piratella. Exceeding track limits can be quite easy here, so maximum precision is required. Running down to turn 11, full commitment on entry. Use all the aerodynamics, settle the platform, extract as much race surface as possible, and maximize traction control on exit. Running up to the tightest chicane on the circuit, you want to be super aggressive here over the curbs. Basically straight line it towards the exit. Maximum commitment, not a big passing zone. Some might try it, but I do not recommend. Flying down to turn 18, this is going to be downhill. This is probably one of the trickiest brake zones as it kind of gets away from you. Really easy to overshoot, so use all the curbing on the inside. 100 signboard, flowing fast out through Rivazza. You can just about use all the curbings on the exit, maximize speed down the front straight. And that's a lap at Imola. Thanks for watching the Honda Performance Development track preview.
Back live for the FCP Euro GT World Challenge America Esports Championship, the finale of our 5-round season. Cody Blanton is on pole in GT3, Mia Rose in GT4. The rain during qualifying mixed everything up here, Ryan, but it looks like the track has dried out here for the race. Still a chance of rain, though. And I think the dry conditions have now going to throw drivers for a loop as they just had to qualify in the wet. So what do you know? I feel like a lot of drivers don't know what they're going to expect here in the 60-minute race.
Well, I always like it when you qualify in one set of conditions and you race in something completely different, because it means you're going to have comers and goers. Those that excelled in the wet, had the wet setup. No guarantee that means that they're going to have the dry setup nailed. So we're going to see an interesting race, to say the least. The field has done a great job getting itself into alignment. You mentioned that there was a little bit of a mix-up, and it was caused by the fact that some of the GT4 cars got some qualifying laps in the dry, so they were actually scheduled to start by time ahead of some of the GT3 field, but they've manually rectified that. The field is in great alignment, and we are very close to getting our season finale started. Ready to crown a champion, Kyle.
60 more minutes of racing in our FCP Euro GT World Challenge America Esports Championship. Cody Blanton went to pole in the final moments of qualifying, but can he hold off a field of nearly 40 other drivers, GT3 and GT4 cars, all the way around the final couple corners here at Imola, a long run down to the start-finish line. We get the green flag very late here, so you get a chance to kind of double everybody up. Cody Blanton in that number 9 Mercedes, and it's an all-Mercedes front row. Josh Staffen in the Lexus in row number 2, and a handful of other Mercedes around him. Nelson Mason in the Audi is in row number 3, starting in 6th. But checking up here as the slow crawl down to the green flag is about to turn us loose. 60 minutes of racing to crown a champion. Cody Blanton out front, Troy Barman in 2nd place, and almost to the green. It's going to be a thunderous run down through turn 1, which is just a very shallow left-hander, but there it is. Green flag flies, and we're racing in the FCP Euro GT World Challenge America Esports Championship, side by side through the run through turn number 1, now to turn 2, the braking zone. Cars off track. The 27, that's Carl Whitmer. He's gone off in the grass in the background. Can he get the car back on course? He does. 3 wide up the inside. He's going to slam over the curbs, but somehow gets through there without any major dramas. Now we're through turn number 3 and 4. Nice clean start by the GT3 field. In the background, cars slipping sideways. That's Lucas Muller popping out to the inside, and he's going to single file out as well. Nicely done by the entire field there.
All things considered, that was very clean. Carl Whitmer didn't have the start he was looking for, but a great job to recover, and the rest of the field was able to let him get back in line, and did so without any major contact. So that's great to see, and now we can settle in for this battle. Up at the front, Blanton and Barman, but the championship leader, Kondacioglu, is up to 3rd after qualifying 4th. That is crucial. If he can run right there, I believe he should be just fine for the championship.
Into Achman Raleigh for the first time. Troy Barman all over the back of the number 9. Again, we qualified in the wet, and I think a different set of drivers will be fast here in the dry. So Barman putting the pressure on Blanton now as they head down to the chicane for the first time. Deep on the brakes, ABS vibrating underfoot. Big slam over the curbs, right and left. Barman putting all sorts of pressure on that front runner as they sweep down through the end of the first lap here. 58 minutes to go. It's getting very, very racy at the front. Barman tucks in tight behind Blanton. Lap number 1, looks like Blanton will hang on to the lead in GT4. It's Honor Cavillon out front. Mia Rose in 2nd, a couple seconds back than Simon Fisher, Juan Reynoso, Vinny Lima. Caleb John Lavender dropped a couple spots at the start of that race in his Audi LMS GT4. Don't see any damage on that car, but he did get shuffled back from his starting spot of 5th place. And they'll come around the final corner and complete their first lap. At the front still, big slam over the curbs. Well, that was a bit of a cut there for Barman. Got to watch the track limits here as well.
Yep, that is something we're going to talk about. Here's an opportunity for Kondacioglu. Gets to the inside after Barman ran wide. This should be a good opportunity to get the pass. Oh, he didn't give him much room, did he there? But here's the crossover. Kondacioglu back on the attack. Josh Staffen, an interested spectator just behind.
Oh, Kondacioglu ran wide. Staffen's going to tuck it up the inside. Nicely done. Throttles back forward. Traction control keeping that car from looping it at the exit of turn number 7, but now side by side on the run up to the left-hander. Staffen's got the preferred line, but maybe Kondacioglu can hold the outside there over the curbs, and Kondacioglu hangs on, runs a little wide, keeps 3rd place for now.
The big winner in this is Blanton. Look, he has stolen a march on this field way up the road, nearly 2 seconds his lead over Barman. That's what it costs you to fight side by side like that. Luckily, no contact. Everyone's been able to continue. No worse for the wear, but back to the grindstone now, trying to claw back this gap that's developed.
Sam Cairns popped out of line on Brian Heitkotter for a moment. Heitkotter runs 9th right now. Cairns behind in that Bentley. Nick McMillan, Colin Johnson, Chris Bruno lined up behind them in a single file train. And Cairns in that big Bentley is hunting that Nissan GTR into the braking zone here. And these bigger cars have a a little bit more ground clearance. They can tackle the curbs a bit more than some of the lower cars like the Ferrari of Philippe Simard in front of them.
Yeah, great start here by Brian Highcutter, by the way. He qualified well outside the top 10. I think he was back at about 14th spot in qualifying, if memory serves, and already up 5 spots. And I don't know how much of that came on the initial start. Cairns looked like he was really struggling in the wet back in qualifying, but here in the dry conditions, he's really manhandling his right-hand drive Bentley. It's looking very stable for him, all over the rear wing of Brian Highcutter. We know how good Brian is, and if you can hang with Brian, you're doing something right.
Look at Lucas Moeller all over the back of Hamza Golzar in that bright green Mercedes AMG. Then Philippe Simard behind them, crossover, big look up the inside, contact. Golzar gets knocked forward, and he's going to gather it back up 3 wide. Simard up the middle, he gets squeezed, has to back out side by side between the Mercedes on the run up to turn 8.
As Simard, the Canadian, recognized that discretion is the better part of valor, decided to get his nose out of that. That looked like a disaster waiting to happen, so very prudent move on his part in the Ferrari. He's another one. We talked about Nelson Mason. Lots of speed, no results to show for it. I would put Philippe Simard in that category. He's qualified very well in the past, several pole positions, but just has not been able to put together enough finishes that would leave him in the championship hunt. Not a great qualifying effort in the rain, but back in 8th and doing it in the Ferrari. This is a track that is considered by many to be a home track for Ferrari. In fact, it's named after Enzo and his son Dino, Alfredo, but he went by Dino. That's the official name for the track, Autodromo di Enzo and Dino Ferrari. So, and Tifosi always come out in force to support the Ferraris as well here at Imola. So we'd love to see that prancing horse have a great result.
Simard in the slipstream here. This front straightaway is very, very long. This Ferrari is quite a slippery machine, and in behind that big Mercedes, got the cross-section of a refrigerator down the front straight. Look at the closing right here. He's going to poke out to the right. See that lane open up just a touch, and Simard going to dive on the brakes with that 44 out of line. He's going to squeeze up the outside. Can't fit the car there as the 44 crosses over to hit the apex for turn 2.
Yeah, it's a tough place to get the job done. Looks like perhaps some lap traffic here with that BMW. That's one of the classic BMW cars, I think, that must have had some trouble early on. There's some trouble as well. Golzar goes spearing off the track. Moeller got into him, and happy birthday to you, Philippe Simard, able to pick up 2 spots, and more chaos has ensued.
Yeah, Highcutter got shuffled off track as well. Golzar will grab a couple spots back. Sam Cairns now looking up the inside. 2x2x2 here at Imola. Cairns with a little bit of left side damage. Is going to squeeze up the inside. Behind them, Colin Johnson. The 176. Golzar spins.
Yeah, not a great place to be side by side. It looks like Golzar managed to not hit anything, which is crucial. It's been a fraught lap for him. Had a great run going, but it's all gone wrong. Trying to get it to all work through that high-speed Piratella corner. And really, you rarely can make it happen side by side. In this case, Golzar was the victim.
Handful of CMS cars, Lamborghini and 2 of the Bentleys. Then behind them is Carl Whitmer. We saw him off track in the grass on driver's left at the start of the race. He managed to gather it back up and keep the car on course and point it in the right direction and on the road. Here he is in 14th now, looking behind Matthew Santiago in that CMS Pro number 216 Bentley. Colin Johnson in a similarly prepped and looking car.
Yeah, Whitmer gave us that tour of the track earlier in the broadcast. He knows his way around a racetrack, certainly an up-and-coming GT driver in North America, part of the HPD Driver Academy, GT3 Driver Academy here in 2020, I guess it was. We've turned the calendar now to 2021, but has some big plans, I believe, that are in the works, and can't wait to hear what they're going to be for the upcoming 2021 season. And then that fleet of CMS cars up ahead, the Lamborghini and a couple of Bentleys running in lockstep. Those FCP Euro liveries look great on those cars, whether it's the Bentley or the Lambo.
Absolutely. Dylan Archer in the number 32 is one of the lone McLarens in the field. That 720 number 32 car as he trails in behind Carl Whitmer. A little bit wide there, kicks some dust up in front of Lucas Moeller. Lucas with a C running in 16th in that number 55 car. And trailing behind Dylan Archer as we sweep through turn number 8. Nothing's changed at the front of this field. Briefly going to check in on GT4 here, but not missing a lot here. There's an Orcavion right behind, I believe it's the 71 car. which is Michael Herzen. There he is in the FCP Euro Mercedes. Again, a beautiful looking livery, and thanks again to FCP Euro for their support. Of course, a European parts distributor and supplier, and they are an awesome company that has come on to support this esports season. So definitely check them out and take a visit, because especially if you own a European car or thinking about owning a European car, it's the place to go if you want parts.
Yep, that's very clear. I think it's been clear from the advertising, but also just getting to know these guys and what their company is all about. It's really fantastic, and the racing is a big part of it, and how they position themselves in the marketplace. It's an opportunity to show that they really believe in the products that they're selling, because in the case of the drivers who are employees, they're staking their lives on it by running their real cars in the real SRO series with these parts. So really tremendous initiative, and a big supporter of not just SRO and esports, but the whole motorsports community in general.
Here's Troy Barman and Michael Kondakcioglu. This is for second place in GT3. Josh Staffen in the background in that black and red Lexus staying in the picture, but the second place battle has fallen about 3 seconds behind Cody Blanton, who continues to run very competitive lap times. But Michael Kondakcioglu was a little bit quicker last time, and I think Barman's holding him up just a touch. I'm curious if Kondakcioglu can pass this white and blue Mercedes. He might have something for Blanton up the road.
Well, I'd be a little bit surprised to see Kondakcioglu get too aggressive, because you have obviously the risk of an accident, but perhaps also a penalty should there be some contact, and that has been something that has factored into Kondakcioglu's season to this point. So, like we talked about, he's got a pretty big lead, 19 points on coming in. So, as it stands, I think he could run here in third. I was in the middle of trying to calculate this when we were talking about it, so I'll finalize this in a moment, but I believe running where he is, he could clinch the championship, even with the two guys closest to him in points running ahead of him. And so if that is the case, I'm sure he would be aware of it and will drive accordingly, not taking any risks. Yes, you want to win the race, but we're all here to win the championship as well, and Michael's been out in front of the points since this thing got started, and certainly through the first two races was the dominant force, but the championship has opened up the way the last two rounds have played out, and there is still every chance that something could change, and either Blanton or Barman could make a run for it.
Kondakcioglu keeping the pressure up on second place. Barman, you were mentioning penalties. Well, Philippe Simard has a 15-second time penalty. You can only assume for car contact in the early going. Not a lot of damage or telltale signs that he's been in an incident, but has Nelson Mason behind him now. This will be a free spot at the end of the race if Simard doesn't serve this during a pit stop. So not the way that, or I should say Simard, not the way that Simard wanted to start this race, but has a penalty to deal with. Nelson Mason talked about how good he was in practice and qualifying, running 6th right now, has Lucas Muller and Nick McMillan behind him in a couple of Mercedes, but Mason's got a lot of pace right now in that Racers 360 Audi Niagara Motorsport car. Continuing to keep pressure on as the Mercedes behind him battle for 7th.
And so taking a look at the point standings, just to put a bow on what we were talking about, Kondakcioglu would indeed be in a position where he could clinch the championship running here in third. A third place finish would net him 23 points. That would put him up to 103 on the season. Blanton is third in points, and a win is worth 30. He has 65 at the moment, so that would only get him to 95. So as it stands, they would be in very good shape, would Kondakcioglu, to clinch this.
Andy DeLab in the 316, we saw the GT3 leaders going by. So Andy DeLab in that Asus Republic of Gamers GT4. Why would I mention Asus Republic of Gamers? Because they're a huge supporter of the FCP Euro GT World Challenge America Esports Championship, and paired with Fanatec, they are giving away 2 PCs with a sim rig combination with Fanatec sim racing gear. You can enter at the GT World Challenge America social networks. There's a link on how to enter in the chats wherever you're watching this live stream. Of course, a huge thanks to Asus, Tough Gaming, and Republic of Gamers for being a part of this season, along with Fanatec for providing the sim racing gear to go along with. And a couple of drivers running some representation. There's one of them, Brian Heitkotter for Chris Forsberg Racing, as well as Forsberg. Car in the background I saw off track, was that Nelson? No, it looked like it could have been. It is Nelson Mason in the Audi. Look at the 35, he got a ton of damage on that car.
Wonder what happened there to Nelson. We talked about it earlier. I think it was back during qualifying. He has been remarkably quick, but has no result to show for it. It has to be so frustrating to be fast week in and week out and just not be able to put the races together. In fact, he had scored no points somehow coming into this, which is unbelievable to me. As many times as he's been running in the top 5 or in podium contention, just has not had the races go his way. And you really feel for him. And I was hoping that this would be a weekend where he could break through, but so far it looks like the Canadian driver's luck just won't break his way.
Absolutely not. There's Philippe Samard up to 5th place now, again with that penalty we mentioned earlier. Troy Barman has caught up to Cody Blanton just a little bit. 1.6 seconds is the gap. It was as high as, I believe, 2.9 a little earlier in this race as we hit the 15-minute mark. So that number 9 car is not totally escaped as we come across the line. And I wonder how much co-opetition we'll see between these two Mercedes here. If Kadacioglu is going to play nice with Barman until they catch Blanton, or if they're going to fight amongst themselves and figure out who can go up there and run that 9 car down.
Gotta say, I wasn't expecting a Darrell Waltripism on an SRO broadcast, but we'll take it. No, it's fitting because these two, if they can work together, would have a chance to run Barman down. I think Kadacioglu is the faster of these two, and I think that's pretty clear given the fact that the gap has not changed between the pair of them since we've been watching them. And they're not losing a ton of ground to Blanton, so I don't think... and again, just because of the championship scenario the way that it is, I don't think we're going to see Kadacioglu make a move. But I'm sure he's a little bit frustrated because, ultimately as a driver, you want to show the true pace of your car, and I'm not sure he's able to do that right now.
Some lap traffic getting into the GT4 field for Cody Blanton. You can see M4 GT4 that they've just gone by, so it's going to get a little bit racy out here. Blanton bouncing over the curbs. There's one of those Mercedes GT4s. We haven't seen a whole lot of those around. Checking to see what driver that is. Looks like... see what... it's Cameron Sensano in the number 99. Good-looking car, that GT4. In the meantime, in the background, you saw Kadacioglu going for a pass on Barman. Wasn't able to get it done as Barman runs wide. I think Barman might be holding up this 96 just a touch.
Yes, he certainly is, based on what I've seen to this point, but it's just that difficult calculus if you're Kadacioglu of how much risk are you really willing to take to go and try and get a good result here in this race when that result really is not going to affect the championship in any meaningful way. He's looking a bit aggrieved, though, at this point. I have to say, the aggression has been dialed up, and if he's got anybody in his ear, I would encourage them to let him know, look, you don't need to be exposing yourself to any opportunity to have this go awry at this point. Just keep doing what you're doing, put some pressure on Barman. Maybe he'll make a mistake and you can get by that way, but don't take any undue risk and throw away a shot at the title.
And nothing of consequence really happening in GT4 right now. Everyone's just sort of found their own room to race, and so far it's been relatively clean. Here's a battle for position. Carl Whitmer in 12th continues to move forward after his bobble on the opening lap. Lucas Muller in the 55 chasing him down. This is a pretty good battle for 12th position.
It is. I'm really impressed at what Carl's been able to do to recover, because he got really shuffled wide and it could have gone completely sideways for him, quite literally, in fact, at that point. But he was able to get it back under control, bring it back out onto the track, and doesn't seem to have let it affect him in any kind of way. He's focusing forward, had a nice comeback, but right now he does have Lucas Muller right there on his gearbox, and Lucas is putting a lot of pressure on that NSX up the road. So I think there is some speed here in this Mercedes. Frankly, I'm a little bit surprised to see either of our Lucas Mullers running this far back. Both of them have been fixtures in the top 10 much of the season.
Some struggles today, perhaps. There's the number 73 of Dakota Dickerson. Seen him in the past in the Ferrari platform. Here he is in one of the Acura NSX GT3s. And as we saw, Carl Whitmer just lose the position to Lucas Muller in the penultimate corner. So it looks like Muller just chucked it down the inside, took that position. But going back to Dickerson in this Acura NSX GT3, running in 14th right now, Matthew Marlowe in a Lamborghini. Bringing up that battle, Dylan Archer, Colin Johnson having a bit of a scrap for 16th place.
It's a great battle here, and it just goes to show no matter where on the track you're running, more likely than not, you'll find somebody running about your pace, and you can have a good battle to take part in. Here's a move up the inside it's a good place to get the job done, but very late on the brakes. Dylan Archer, a veteran of Trans Am racing over the last year or so. A Trans Am car and a GT3 car have very little in common, but the one crossover is talented drivers are going to excel in both, and I think Dylan's an up-and-comer we're going to have to keep our eyes on.
Checking back in on GT4, the lead has closed up a little bit. Mia Rose, I believe, sat on the pole in, was it Mia Rose or Honor Cavillon that won the pole?
Nope, you were right. It was Mia Rose on the pole. Had a race win the last time out.
Yes, so Mia Rose did lose the position to Honor Cavillon, but is chasing Honor back down. Last time by was about 2/10 slower, but I do think that Mia is trending forward, so let's keep an eye on this as they come onto the front straightaway. Frankly, not very close behind them. 8.7 back to Simon Fisher in the 595, but these two Jean Alesi Esports Academy drivers just completely stomping on the GT4 field this afternoon.
Yep, they are. That John Alesi Esports Academy has won every race to this point. Honor Cavillon won the first 3. Mia Rose won the last time. Have not finished off the podium in any of the races. That was Mia's first appearance in the GT World Challenge America Esports Championship, having done most of her racing in the Asian Championship to this point. Saw a tweet from her earlier in the week kind of reflecting on what a year 2020 was, and so she was admitted into the Esports Academy back last year. She also got married last year, so a lot of things that she was very excited about, and our congratulations to her. And certainly we wish her the best of luck as we turn the calendar here into 2021, getting it off to a great start by sticking the car on pole and then running right there in lockstep with her teammate, Honor Cavillon, who has been absolutely outstanding at the front of the field.
Well, it's great to hear that there are some positives coming out of 2020 for
I know.
The chaotic year that 2020 was. It has allowed a lot of opportunity in other places, specifically in the esports space, and you know, it's hard to imagine that things would have scaled like this had we not had the situation in 2020 with the pandemic and all that. So I think while it was obviously not a great situation for a variety of reasons, it has opened up some opportunities in the esports space and allowed us to have a platform to bring this to you, and thanks to FCP Euro and all the other partners here that have really helped us bring this championship and the previous championship GT Rivals to your screens all over the world. So good to reflect on the positives of 2020 as well, and hoping that 2021 is more one way than the other and more positives than negatives. As we head back to the GT3 battle, Cody Blanton has stretched that lead back out. Looks like right now 3.8 seconds with Barman and Kondakcioglu trailing.
Yep, Kondakcioglu is being held up, no question about it. I think he could pull away if he could make the pass. Going to take a look here. To this point, Barman has been studious, guarding the inside line, not giving Kondakcioglu an opportunity, and it is risky to stick it to the outside here. You can get it done, but that really requires the car you're trying to pass to roll it up in a big way so that it doesn't drift out. Here comes Kondakcioglu, left, then right, just trying to find a way past. That was some really heady driving, though, by Barman, sticking that car in a position where there really was not a lane on either side, at least not one that Kondakcioglu really wanted to have to commit himself to. And I think Barman knows that Kondakcioglu has a lot to lose in this scenario, and he's probably using that to his advantage, trying to force it so that if Kondakcioglu is going to make a move, it's going to have to be a risky one, and maybe he'll back out because he's got his championship in the back of his mind.
Well, the gap to the race leader continues to grow, over 5 seconds now as we head into Minerale. In the background, Philippe Simard, even with his penalty, continues to rage on. The more time that he can gain, the less positions he'll lose at the end of that race when that penalty is applied. Is up the road. Kondakcioglu has a look up the inside into the braking zone for the chicane. Can't get there, and the frustration is going to mount. And as you mentioned, Brian, probably not a great idea to force the issue here, but it's got to be frustrating to have to sit back here and watch Barman get defensive when you know you might have an opportunity to win this race.
Well, the change in the calculus comes in the presence of that Ferrari, which is getting closer and closer by the lap. Philippe Simard is getting there. Now, there is the penalty to factor in, but if Simard were to clear these two and pull ahead enough where that post-race penalty of 15 seconds would not affect the outcome, now we might be talking about something a little bit different in the points. A fourth-place result for Kondakcioglu versus a third is the difference of 4 points, so that's 19 points for Kondakcioglu should he finish fourth, which would get him to 99. We've got Blanton leading. A win would get him to 95, so it still wouldn't be enough to overturn things. But I guess the other thing that could change is should Barman somehow be able to get up to the lead, then it could affect things a little bit more because Barman is the one that is closer on points coming into this weekend.
Saw one of the Porsche GT4s off the racetrack in the second chicane. That's that pink and black car in the background. No major dramas, not a battle for position at stake there. Barman up the inside of the GT4 race leader, Nor Cavillon, with Mia Rose losing some time in that exchange. That's the nature of multi-class racing. Kondachalu going around the outside. Samard going to find some pace here in the braking zone and should be able to get by Cavillon on the straightaway here. I believe Samard also losing some time in that exchange. It's sort of a lose-lose for everybody at times. You can get lucky, and mostly you feel unlucky when you're working through other class traffic here.
Yeah, you never seem to say, wow, that really broke my way, but eventually it does come around, and I think it's worth keeping in mind even the slower class will feel inconvenienced by the whole situation as well. You pointed out quite rightly that Mia Rose lost quite a bit of ground in that exchange, and it's, like you said, part of multi-class racing. It can be frustrating at times, but it also can provide opportunities that might not be there otherwise. Speaking of opportunities, how about Lucas Moeller on the charge here, trying to find a way past Josh Staffen? This is in Ravansa. Ooh, that was awfully close. They may have made some contact there. And up the road ahead of him, let's give a call to McMillan, because Nick McMillan came into this race 4th in points, had a miserable qualifying effort. I think it was 17th. And he's all the way up to 5th and has done it in a very under-the-radar fashion. But that car looks fast, and he is driving with a purpose. Probably not going to be in the championship picture, but nevertheless, very fast as Staffen makes contact right there.
Yeah, side by side, they're going to bounce over the curbs. They're 3 wide now with Sam Cairns, 4 wide with Heitkotter in the grass as we come through the middle straightaway here. That got very wild. Staffen retains the position. Muller slots back in. Sam Cairns and Heitkotter were super opportunistic there, Ryan, but just couldn't make that work. The track's wide enough for 3, but 4 was opportunistic and maybe optimistic at best.
Yeah, optimistic would be a generous description. I've never seen that attempted. You couldn't stick them 4 wide if they were sitting still, but nevertheless, the racers are going to try and find a gap even where one doesn't necessarily exist. It's pretty amazing to me that all 4 of these cars continued on, basically no worse for the wear.
Yeah, a little bit of damage to the 44 of Muller and the 23 of Staffen, but I think they're going to get away with it. Nothing major, no major aero components damaged in that exchange by the looks of it, but Staffen is getting defensive. He's losing some pace here, and I have to wonder if he had beat up those Pirellis a little bit too much in the opening stint to this race, because he has definitely dropped his pace off, and the others around him have not suffered that same situation.
Yeah, it's fair to wonder that. A little bit further back, Muller is being hounded here by Cairns, who cleared Heitkotter a few laps ago. Staffen has gone wide. Muller goes wide, so Staffen comes back through. 3 wide, folks. This isn't going to work.
Well, it worked for Muller. He gained a couple spots. Here comes Heitkotter now. Great scrap here for 6th position as we come to the start-finish line, and I don't think we're quite done yet.
Oh.
Whoa! Cairns gets turned right into the fence on the front straightaway, and that's a lot of damage to that Bentley.
Yes, it is. I didn't get a good feel for how that actually transpired. It's a strange place for it to happen. There's a bit of a curve in the road. I'm sure our stewards will take a close look at this. Man, who says road racing isn't a contact sport? These two have been bouncing off each other for 2 laps now.
They've been throwing some punches, and I think there's quite a bit of bruising happening here as well. There goes the 44, big slide there off into the gravel, and here comes the 55, the other Lucas Muller to the outside. He'll grab a spot. Now look up the inside of Staffen, and Staffen is just sometimes through the bat, sometimes through the ball, and I think Staffen is feeling like both right now.
He's not just any ball, he's a pinball. He's getting pummeled out there. He's doing his best to try and keep that car going. I think he's one that was doing his rain dance. Qualified incredibly well in the rain, but unfortunately it has not gone his way here in the dry. That, like you said, he seems to be losing a little bit of pace.
Well, I got physical there for quite some time. A lot of battle scars on that Lexus. So Staffen will drop to, looks like 8th place. Lucas Muller in the 55 down to 9th. Matthew Santiago in 10th in that 216, the Lamborghini, seeing the cars in front of him, and I think he's seeing they're smelling the blood in the water here as those guys were getting together. It's brought Santiago right into the mix here inside the top 10.
Yeah, this is a huge battle right here. This is what, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, all running together within a second or two of one another, and there's not much to separate them. there hasn't been much in the way of rhythm either for these guys, and so for them to be able to gather it back up after all of that craziness, that's a skill unto itself. Really remarkable racing, by and large quite clean. Got a report that it might have looked like it was a case that Cairns didn't know that Highcutter was alongside, and that could have led to the contact. We'll see what our stewards think about that one. But as it stands, most everybody was able to survive that and continue on. Cairns certainly got the worst end of that thing, and I'm not sure he's even out there anymore.
Lucas Muller in the 44 through some lap traffic into 7th place, and Matthew Santiago now feeling some pressure from Chris Bruno in the 909. Then Carl Whitmer's back there as well in 12th place, and Carl's running some pretty competitive lap times as well. A 1:45.1 was quicker than a majority of the drivers in front of him the last time around, so keep an eye on that red Acura NSX GT3 behind. Santiago looks up the inside of, that is our 2nd place car, I want to say. Actually, no, that's the 1st place car. That's an Orcavion in the 56.
Up front, Simard has caught the Barman-Kadacioglu battle. He's a half a second back, and actually even closer than that now, it looks like. So this is going to be really interesting. If there is a critique of this Imola circuit, it's that downforce cars do struggle sometimes with overtaking around this place. But we've seen some good side-by-side racing, and I think the opportunities will exist. But give Barman a ton of credit. He does not have the pace of the 2 cars behind him, but he has done everything in his power to drive a clean defensive race and keep them at bay. It's been really impressive to watch.
You can't fault him at all. He's not doing anything out of the ordinary or illegal by any stretch. He's just running a defensive line, which is a fair move, a fair way to race. Can't throw blocks in response to a trailing car, but you can certainly pick a line and stick with it, and that's exactly what Barman is doing. But for Kadacioglu, that's even more frustrating because I'm sure he feels like he's being held up, but again, I'm sure he knows that Barman isn't doing anything wrong. This is just hard racing, but it doesn't make it any less frustrating.
Something happened to Simard. He dropped way off of this battle all of a sudden. He's now 3.5 seconds back. You can see him there. The car looks okay, so maybe he just dropped a wheel or went wide a little bit or something along those lines, but he's going to have his work cut out for him to try and catch back up to those 2 after spending all those laps tracking them back down. Boy, I have to say, like you said, you can't fault Barman. In fact, I give him a ton of credit. It is so hard to drive your line, drive a fast line, and keep tabs on the car that's trying to pass you and not get lost just staring in your mirror and miss your braking point or something like that. I am really, really impressed with what he's been able to do because we know how good Kadacioglu is. We've seen several impressive passes from him over the course of the season, and there has just not been even the slightest crevice to squeeze through for Kadacioglu to this point.
Brian Shabelski having to run a little bit wide to let these GT3 cars on through. And Kadacioglu again getting a fairly good run, and the slipstream's going to help, but we've seen this story time and time again. He hasn't been able to do anything with it. Trying to use the GT4 Mercedes as a pick, but can't get alongside before them. And this is the same lap. You could replay this 28 minutes ago. It looked exactly the same. Off into turn 1 again.
Barman doing exactly what he needs to do, just defend that inside lane, position the car in the appropriate manner. It costs him here on exit, but he knows it, so he's going to put that car in the middle and leave less than a car width to the inside for Kadacioglu. So yeah, there really just isn't an option up the inside, but this might be the chance here into Tosa. You can get it done maybe with a late apex and cross him over. We'll see if he can get a run up the hill.
It's so hard to get traction out of here, even with the torque of the Mercedes AMG engine coming out of the 7th corner on this racetrack. It is just so hard to get power to head up the hill, especially when the driver in front of you is in an identical race car.
That's true. That is something to keep in mind because sometimes when we're talking about GT3 cars, the ultimate pace by and large is pretty much equal thanks to the balance of performance, but the way the cars make that speed does vary, and that can provide some opportunities for passing that you don't see when it's Mercedes on Mercedes as it is right now.
Into the chicane, and this battle will most likely continue. Let's jump back to our GT4 field just a little bit. There's an Orcavion, and Mia Rose is right there, about 0.8 of a second back. So I don't think we're done seeing these 2 fight just yet, but you have to wonder, with an Orcavion clinching the championship, is that more incentive for Mia Rose to race Nora hard, even though they're teammates, knowing that there's not a lot Mia can do to mess this up for the teammate?
Yeah, I think that's right. I think you can afford to take a little bit more risk, but I'm sure these 2 also know each other really well as far as their driving tendencies are concerned, and So that should lead to a clean, fair race between the two of them if that's what ultimately breaks out. I'm not sure which one is faster, because there were times where we saw Cavillon able to pull a gap, and now we're seeing Rose pull back in. So maybe Mia was taking care of her tires a little bit, and she might have a bit more virtual Pirelli rubber under her to make a charge here in the second half of this race.
Well, 26 minutes to go, less than half the race remaining. We'll keep our eyes on that GT4 lead as we have on the GT3 battle for a second, which has looked basically the same. Simard is catching back up again, and I'm curious about Simard because I think he is going to be the force that pushes Kondacoglu through, as that pressure is really going to make Michael want to go. But with Simard, hasn't really been there in about 5 or 6 laps, so Kondacoglu's been able to kind of hang back and wait for a moment. But when he feels that pressure, I think he's going to force his way by that number 191 at Troy Barman.
Well, the thing is, Kondacoglu does not need to keep Simard behind him to clinch the championship. I thought he might have a chance to look up the inside, but Barman is really good on the brakes there into Variante Alta, that big chicane that we just went through a moment ago, but didn't get a great exit. However, we've seen him do this in other corners. He can position himself here in such a way into Rivazza that there's no way that Kondacoglu can get by. And in fact, Kondacoglu didn't even show his nose that time. And there's a good reason for it. You really don't want to compromise your line through Rivazza, because if you do, you're a sitting duck here on the straightaway. And we did see Barman go a little bit wide. This might be Kondacoglu's chance.
Up the inside, Kondacoglu for second place, the points leader. Battling for position into turn number 2. He's going to get squeezed on the inside into the first corner here. Can he get by? Over the curbs, they're going to touch. Barman through the dirt will regain control and will lose the spot now to the number 96 at Kondacoglu. See how the stewards think of that, but a little bit of, as Calvin Fish would say, argy-bargy. Here comes Simard up the inside looking for third, can't get there.
Yeah, that was really close right there into the Tamburello chicane, and Simard goes wide once again. I think that's might have been what happened before as well. To my eye, at least, that was pretty fair racing. I think Barman probably should have backed out of it, quite honestly, into the first set of corners there, the Tamburello chicane, excuse me. The other chicane we saw a moment ago was the Villeneuve chicane. But it's just a tough corner to go side by side in. Kondacoglu has not put his car in that position when he was on the outside in past laps, and I think there's a reason for that. So to my eye, I don't think Kondacoglu certainly was guilty of anything, and I think that's kind of one that gets chalked up as a racing deal, so to speak.
Getting really dicey now with some lap traffic. Barman goes wide. Got the car sideways up over the curbing, and whoa, Simard's going to get doored. I think that's Chris Forsberg in the Chris Forsberg Racing Nissan GTR GT3. So Barman gets the car back on course, loses a spot to Simard, but whoa, sideways into the braking zone, launches up the inside across the racetrack and into the gravel trap.
Oh, I nearly took out Simard as well. Simard's race flashed right before his eyes in the form of that Mercedes. So yeah, this has all gone wrong here on this Barman, and it all started on that previous run through Rivazza. Got a bad exit, dropped a wheel, lost momentum, and didn't quite get to the left in time to defend on Kondacoglu, and it's all been downhill from there.
Here's Nick McMillan. We talked about him earlier. Big dive up the inside of some of the GT4 traffic. It's Andy the Lab up now the inside of the M4. McMillan closing on Barman now. We'll see what his pace looks like. Last time by was actually a second quicker than the race leader, so McMillan might have something up his sleeve here for the last half of this race.
Interesting that one of our Lucas Mullers is in the pits, presumably serving a drive-through penalty that has been assessed. So had been running up in the top 10 and now has dropped quite a ways back, as you can see, making that long run on the pit limiter down the pit lane here at Imola, and that'll be a costly penalty for the Haupts Racing team driver.
Feels like you're driving at 5 miles an hour down this pit lane when you've been doing 150, 160 for almost 40 minutes. So Muller will peel back onto the racetrack, looks like in 14th or 15th place. In behind him, you see the GT4 leaders in Orcavillon and Mia Rose, even closer than they were before. It's half a second now, 0.3 of a second through the first chicane.
I told the story that Mia was so happy with how her 2020 played out, and part of that was getting married, and her partner is an Orcavillon, actually. So we talked about these two knowing each other well and their tendencies well, and you would expect that they would certainly have a pretty good grasp on that, and pretty interesting to see this partnership and just how fast the two of them are. I imagine that would lead to some competitive evenings on the sim rig. At least that's how it would play out in my household.
That's how it plays out here with
That's right.
Tom O'Gorman, two-time winner in TC America. He's very competitive on the sim rig.
You're not married, but
No.
you might as well be.
No, but
As much time
we're
as
still
you
just
guys
as competitive.
doing various things.
Yes.
Right, exactly so.
Down through Akmanarale. Rose got a pretty good run here in the slipstream now, and these GT4s don't quite have the top end of the GT3s, but still a fairly significant slipstream, and actually probably feels even more effective on these cars because of the extra drag that they've got.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. So this is definitely the closest Rose has been to Cavillon in quite some time, and sitting in that slipstream, she's had a chance to really analyze what Honor has been doing to this point in the race, and has probably sized up the best opportunity to make the pass at this point based on the data that she has seen, right? Following that car ahead, you spend your time trying to figure out, all right, where is that driver a little bit weaker than I am? Where can I attack? So we'll see in the final 20 minutes if Mia has something for her teammate, and they've got a huge gap back to Fisher, who really is not in the picture running in the third spot. So this is your battle for the lead, full stop, in GT4.
With those battles continuing, 20 minutes left in this race. Let's check in on some of our FCP Euro buddies. How about Nate Vincent in the number 72? Been a pretty good run for him. Kept the nose clean today, runs 18th at the moment, the higher of the FCP Euro cars. The 71 of Michael Herzen, back in 33rd overall, but nose is clean on this car as well, and I love the livery on these FCP Euro cars. Ryan, just very clean and tidy looking, and Nate expertly working his way through that first chicane.
Yeah, that livery always looked good on the Volkswagen Golf GTI TCRs that they've run the last couple of years. Nate drove 1 to 2nd in the 2019 TC America Championship in the TCR class, and then had his championship cut a little bit short last year, only did the 2 rounds because of the COVID-19 pandemic and FCP Euro needing to make sure its resources were focused on the business and not exposed in any way to the pandemic. That could have been very bad for the business, so they had to curtail their racing efforts, which in part led to their involvement here with the esports world, which has been awesome, and love to see how they grabbed that opportunity by the horns. But really excited to see what they have in store for us next year. Nate's told me they've got big plans. Couldn't tell me exactly what yet, but it'll be a 2-driver scenario that they're looking at for next year, and presumably with him and Michael Herzen, and both of them have some experience doing some multi-driver lineups in other series in the past, so can't wait to see what their plans are when they become official.
Just up the road from Nate Vincent is the 136 of Dirk Grunewald with the Corteco colors, that nice kind of lavender blue with the red Corteco on the top of that BMW M6 GT3. Dirk running in 17th, and thinking back to the 6 hours of Spa, Dirk had a lot of success there today. Has been negotiating the GT4 traffic nicely and doesn't have a scratch on that car. Will return it without any damages. And he's having a pretty good day as well, running about 10 seconds back from Lucas Moeller in that 55 up the road.
And Dirk's been on a nice run as of late in this championship. He only scored 2 points in the first 2 races combined, but 27 in the last 2, including 17 points, which would be a 5th place finish the last time out at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. So things starting to go his way. Not having a great run here, running down in 17th. That's not the result he's looking for, but just outside of the top 10 in points in a very competitive field of both sim racers and pro racers. And I gotta say, if you can be in that conversation, you've done something right over the course of 5 races.
I'd say so. And looking at the timing and scoring, you mentioned how competitive it is. Maybe getting elbows out today. Look at all the penalties down the timing and scoring. A lot of people have been a bit naughty today. Philippe Samard again with that 15-second time penalty. Lucas Moeller has picked one up as well. Chris Bruno has a drive-through to serve. Johnson in 12th. And the Bentley also a 15-second penalty. Forsberg picking up one as well. So the penalties and black flags have been flying left and right today with a little bit of elbow out racing, but that's how it is sometimes with the big fields that we have here in GT3 and GT4.
Yep, and that battle up for the 4th spot continues to be good. McMillan has caught Barman, and after that one disastrous lap, it looks like things have settled down a bit for Barman. He's been back to his old tricks, driving that defensive race, keeping a Mercedes behind his own Mercedes. That's been impressive to see so far. And for these guys right now, their goal is to stay within 15 seconds of Simard, and then they'll be able to benefit from the penalty that's headed Philippe's way when this race wraps up. And I'm also keeping an eye on the gap between Blanton and Kondacoglu. It was about 7 seconds at last check. Blanton just crossed the start-finish line, and Kondacoglu has now followed suit. Was able to pick up about 0.2 of a second, a little bit less than that on that last lap. So he is slowly pulling Blanton in. But again, there's not a huge incentive for Michael to get there or to take any risk, even if he does, because he is running right where he needs to clinch the season-long championship.
Carl Whitmer in the number 22. We saw him take us through a lap here at Imola. A bunch of cars hitting pit lane, serving some penalties. Chris Bruno is one of them. But Carl Whitmer is actually going to crack the top 10 there with that car peeling down pit lane. And Carl, one of his wins from last season, the GT Rivals Championship, came at Mount Panorama at Bathurst. And Carl has been running very well today, up inside the top 10 for the first time, and continues to run lap times that are on par with a handful of drivers ahead of him. I wouldn't be surprised to see him make up a few more spots in that Acura NSX GT3.
Yeah, Carl's got a tremendous history racing Honda branded machinery in the Canadian Touring Car Championship, and I think I've talked about it before, but the Whitmer family is just full of racers. His brothers are all racers. His father, Patrick, was a champion touring car driver. His grandfather was actually a 5-time rally champion, I understand. So it really goes back quite a ways. Motorsports and hockey are big in the Whitmer family, as you would expect from a Canadian family, and Carl has certainly continued a lot of that tradition. He's got second place finishes in TC Championship during the Pirelli World Challenge 2018 season. He was second in Pirelli GT4 America Sprint X East Pro-Am back in 2019. A split season, actually, between a BMW and a Ford Mustang. That's actually an amazing story in and of itself, but maybe we'll tell that one another day. But definitely an up-and-coming driver, and one that Honda and Honda Performance Development has highlighted. The proof of that is the fact that he was tabbed to join the HPD GT3 Driver Academy this year, which has allowed him to do a lot of on-track testing in a car identical to this one that he's racing here in the sim world. So a lot of exciting things for Carl, and great to see him having another nice run here in virtual competition, something he didn't have much experience with before the pandemic hit.
And I was talking with Carl yesterday as we were recording that lap video, and he was telling me that he's really embraced this sim racing driving. And if you're at home and would like to embrace the sim racing driving as well, and join us for future seasons of Assetto Corsa Competizione Esports action, thanks to Asus Republic of Gamers and Fanatec, there are some giveaways for 2 gaming PCs with NVIDIA RTX 3080 GPUs and AMD CPUs. All the new stuff in those PCs. There's 2 of them to give away. You can enter and learn how to enter at the GT World Challenge America social networks. You can find that link in all the chats or on the Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter feeds of GT World Challenge America. So thanks again to Asus Republic of Gamers and Fanatec for offering those awesome giveaways. And for jumping on board Brian Heitcotter's number 5 Nissan, who runs currently 6th, and running down Nick McMillan's going to be a little work. It's 10.5 seconds up the road, but with 13 minutes left, I think there's still an opportunity for a top 5 if things get messy up ahead.
Well, those 2 drivers are the 2 that have impressed me most in this race. They came from way back. Heitcotter qualified, I think it was 14th, McMillan 17th, and look at them now running 5th and 6th, and actually both of them are either within the window or on the cusp of being within the window of being able to take advantage of Philippe Simard's penalty and pick up another spot when the race is all said and done. So for Brian, yeah, maybe tracking down McMillan isn't a possibility, but if he can get within 15 seconds of Philippe Simard, that's just as good. That's another spot when the race is over in 13 minutes.
Troy Barman going by the 222 of Jason Alexandridis. McMillan going to get held up here just a little bit. Will juke to the right. The exit of the Villeneuve chicane, going to get squeezed on the outside. Now a dive up the inside there, but this is really hurting McMillan in his chase of Troy Barman, who will escape for now at a second up the road.
Jason's got a lot of experience racing in various types of cars in the SRO paddock back during the Pirelli World Challenge days in particular, and has got background working in Silicon Valley for different tech companies, but has since gone into business with an indoor trampoline park, actually, called Rebounders, and you'll often see that on his race cars. But real enthusiast, has done a lot of racing, like I said, rarely putting full seasons together, but has done a lot in Pirelli World Challenge and has actually done the California 8 Hours, part of the Intercontinental GT Challenge powered by Pirelli. He ran that race at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca back in 2019, so some IGTC experience as well, and just a real enthusiast for the sport. Great to have him as part of the championship too.
Battle for position in GT4. This is for the lead in that category. Mia Rose and Anor Cavillon going at it on the front straightaway, side by side here with 11.5 minutes to go. This is a really great fight between the Genelise Esports Academy drivers into turn number 2 now on the brakes, door to door. Mia is the driver without the headlights. Anor Cavillon's got the headlights on, but a contact there as they go through turn 2.
Well, that's going to make for an interesting dinner table conversation between the two of them. Definitely some argy-bargy there, but put Mia Rose to the point. That's interesting because Cavillon's been the one that has dominated this championship to this point. She won the first 3 races in GT4. However, Mia Rose was not in those first 3 races, and since joining the championship in our most recent round, and now here again, she's the one with the race wins, or the only race win to this point, and if this one would hold up, she'd have the second one. So a little bit of bragging rights for sure. Teammates and partners in many respects, but competitors and fierce ones at the moment.
Passing Andy DeLab in that purple Aston Martin GT4 in the background. I'm curious to see if Anor can catch back up to Mia Rose, or if the Pirellis are a bit worn out. Big cut there at the bottom of Akmanarale in the run up to the chicane. But I think Anor might have burned up the rear tires on that Porsche 718 Cayman GT4 just a little bit. Mia Rose has been faster for the last 20 or 30 minutes, and I think is now just going to slowly creep away. However, Anor got a great run there out of the chicane and might keep this close.
There's not much to separate these two, is there? Definitely has a run, but Ravazza is a tough place to get it done, and Mia doing a great job being defensive, holding that inside line and making sure there's not a great opportunity, but nevertheless, here comes Cavillon.
Up the inside, climbs the curbing in the final corner. Now a drag race down the front stretch here. Headlights on Anor. The headlights are off on Mia Rose to keep them separate. On the front straightaway though, side draft maybe, get the air dumped over the rear spoiler. Tucks in behind. And now we'll try to launch down into turn number 2. They're pushing and shoving here, Ryan, getting dicey.
Oh, this is great. They have been at it hammer and tong here for the last couple of laps. They were side by side through this corner the last time.
A little bit wide, dragging the tire off in the gravel trap now. That can catch you and throw the car the wrong direction, so have to be careful there. Now through the Villeneuve chicane. Anor has been using a bit more of the track. That tells me that Anor is struggling a little bit with grip and kind of cutting the corners a little bit more to shorten up the racing line. Has to move over to let the 05 car through. That, of course, is Brian Heitkotter, who runs 6th in GT3, and through goes Brian.
That's the tough part here. You're in a battle for the lead, and you've got other cars coming through from another class that you have to deal with. And you want to be courteous because you're in the slower class, but you've got your own battle that you're focused on, especially when it's for the top spot as this one is.
Carrying a lot of momentum through Akmanarale is really difficult because of how constrictive that corner exit is. It jukes back to the right after a very tight right-hander with an off-track that will get you a penalty if you run too wide, so you have to be very careful not to make a mistake there. Big dive on the brakes for Anor, but well, Anor's a lot better through that chicane sequence, and you can see her gain there, Ryan, and that's what's keeping this battle close and tight for now.
It does seem like the first half of the lap, perhaps Rose has a bit of an edge and Cavillon's a little bit faster through this part, and last time made a bold move through Ravazza, going to try and get up the inside here, and they're going to be side by side again in Ravazza too.
Moving Anor Cavillon back to the race lead. I don't think we're done yet, though. Mia Rose will have the slipstream in the run this time through as they come onto the front straightaway. 8 minutes to go, and an incredible scrap between teammates in the front of GT4 here in the FCP Euro GT World Challenge America Esports Championship.
Oh, this is awesome. Here comes Staffen in the background in the GT3 Lexus, and for the 3rd straight lap at least here in Tamburello, side by side for these Porsche Caymans. Teammates. They don't look like teammates. The liveries are the same, but the way they're racing each other, they are as aggressive and fierce as any of the competitors we've seen so far in this race.
I think I count 3 lead changes since we came out of the final corner, so this is absolutely phenomenal racing. Mia Rose back in second place again. Big dive up the inside for turn 7. Mia's through.
But can she woe it up? And the answer is no. That was really aggressive, like you called it, Kyle. And I was pretty surprised that she would be that late on the brakes. It didn't seem like she was going to be able to get it to stick, and indeed couldn't quite get it slowed down enough to make the corner. So advantage Cavallon. That was awesome, though. That was clean. It was close. It went on for seemingly 3 or 4 laps. That was absolutely phenomenal. And quite honestly, the GT4 races haven't been all that compelling at times this year because Cavallon has been so strong, or it was Rose at Laguna Seca that was so strong. Cavallon had the comeback drive that was pretty interesting to keep tabs on. But to see the two of them this close for this long, to showing just how good they are, that is as good of racing as we've seen all season long. And we've had some barn burners in GT3 and now the GT4 class showing what it can do.
Fantastic stuff in GT4. Shifting our focus back to the top category in this race, Cody Blanton in the number 9 has led essentially since the drop of the green flag. Michael Kondakcioglu in the number 96. He is the current points leader, and as it stands will clinch the championship. He's closed in. It's 5 seconds now between Kondakcioglu and Blanton up the road, but it's going to take maybe a little bit of an act of God to get that 96 up to the front without a mistake or a holdup for the number 9. Samard runs 3rd, but will likely lose that position if Nick McMillan can keep that gap under 15 seconds in 4th, which I think is looking fairly likely right now. So with 5.5 minutes to go, Blanton is out in front by 5 seconds here, Ryan. Kondakcioglu's trying to get there, but it's going to take a little bit of help to get there.
It will. I think he just doesn't have much incentive to push too hard. And while he is faster, I don't think he is that much faster on raw pace. And even if he is, how much risk would it take? And it really wouldn't be worth it because, again, running where he is, he will be the champion of the season. So, yeah, if he can get there, I'm sure he'd love to close out the season with a race win. Hasn't won since the opening round. And the way the first 2 races were going until the very end of that second race, it looked like he was going to put a Brian Highcutter kind of season together, going back to GT Rivals. But that really isn't how it's played out. 2 great opening races to start the season. The last 2 have not been very good. Just to have a clean race here is a big step in the right direction for Michael, and to do it with everything that's on the line makes it all the more remarkable what he's been able to accomplish. A great bounce back and really a smart drive today. Never took too many risks. He was very aggressive at times, battling with Barman, but never put the car in a compromised position. It was a little bit of contact, but I put that more on Troy, trying to defend as aggressively as he could. I've just been really impressed with how Kondakcioglu has approached this race and the championship today.
4.2 seconds back, continues to close. Last time by was 2/10 quicker. It's going to take more than that to get there. Meanwhile, Nick McMillan has Troy Barman right underneath the rear wing here. This could switch positions here. In the background, you see Michael Herzen in the 71 FCP Euro Mercedes, but not for position. These two, however, scrapping for 4th, and this is important because if they can keep this gap to Samard under 15 seconds, this will be for a podium spot. Here comes Barman.
Yeah, so actually there was a swap of positions. McMillan had caught Barman a moment ago, but Barman and made the pass, but now Barman has taken that spot back. So you don't want to lose too much time here in this battle for the reason you pointed out. Trying to stay within 15 seconds of Samard is going to be crucial for both of these guys, however this battle resolves itself. But effectively, this is the battle for the final spot on the podium, so maybe that's what they're thinking about more right now, trying to get by one another, and they'll deal with that 15-second situation regarding Samard when the time comes.
I'd be careful with that. Samard is running pretty quick lap times, mid-143s, which is about a second off of the front 2, but is essentially on pace with everyone from 4th on back. So all Samard needs to do is continue running laps. If Barman and McMillan fight for too much longer, they will lose the 3 seconds required to have Samard finish on the podium, regardless of the 15-second time penalty, which would be phenomenal in its own right. That's hard to do, Ryan, to get a 15-second penalty and drive far enough away for it to not matter.
Yeah, we talked a lot this season about how getting a good result in this series, what's required to do it is have basically a perfect trouble-free race, and that would kind of put lie to that notion if you were able to put together a podium run even with a 15-second penalty. But nevertheless, I think that just speaks to the pace of our top 3 today. Blanton has been excellent. Did a great job in qualifying to get that front row start, had a good start, seized the lead, and never relinquished it to this point.
Checking back in with our GT4 race leaders, 2.5 minutes to go. Likely white flag either next time by or the lap after that. Meanwhile, these two just cannot seem to get away from each other. Honor Cavillon has lost some time again after Mia Rose's mistake in turn number 7. And that has brought Mia Rose back to this front battle after running down her teammate. So through turns 1 and 2, it's going to be a scrap again all the way to the checkers. I wouldn't be surprised to see these guys banging doors all the way to the checkers.
No, I would not be surprised at all based on what we saw earlier. 2 minutes to go, and you made the point early in the broadcast that Cavillon's clinched this championship, so they don't really need to worry too much. Even if they do end up with a crash, I'm sure they won't be happy about it, but it's not going to affect the points. And Rose, as a partial season participant, she has no championship aspirations at this point anyway. So they really do have a free hand to a large degree to fight this thing out. I think that perhaps in the first half of this race we saw Cavillon use up her tires a little bit, and in the second half that's really where we've seen Rose come to the fore, and she has been incredibly strong, taking the lead for a little while. Oh, big save. Wow, caught a little bit too much curb that time. We've seen her aggressive on those curbs. Almost caught her out, but a great job to pull that car back under control.
Meanwhile, at the front of this field, I believe we've taken the white flag for Cody Blanton. He has led since the drop of the green flag, and to see the white, probably a huge relief, as Michael Kondachilou was still kind of eating into that race lead, and if we had another 20 or 30 minutes on the clock, I think that would be a legitimate fight for the top spot. However, Cody Blanton's ultimate hopes are not going to be realized today. With Kondachilou running in second, the chance for a championship is effectively 0. However, Ryan, not a bad way to end a season with a trophy in hand.
No, and did everything he could to win the championship here in this race. Cody Blanton came in third. It was going to be a difficult proposition to win the title because it would have required finishing ahead of both Kondachilou and Barman, which he is doing, but also trouble for both of those two, and that just has not materialized. So a really good run, did everything that he could control. Not quite enough to win the championship, but should result in a top 3 finish in points, which is remarkable in its own right, and a first win on the season if he can pull it off.
Cody Blanton out of the final corner, led from flag to flag in the season finale of the FCP Euro GT World Challenge America Esports Championship. He will win the race. He will come up short of the championship, but Michael Kondachilou, for all the chaos in the latter half of the season, he will come on through and clinch the 2020 FCP Euro GT World Challenge America Esports Championship in the GT3 category. Congratulations to Michael Kondachilou for winning the championship here today at Imola. Philippe Samard in third place. We'll see if he drops down a couple positions with that penalty. And then shifting our focus back to GT4. It's Honor Cavillon and Mia Rose, the teammates that battled the last couple races, but it has been Honor Cavillon that has been on top of it every single round this season, has won a handful of races, completely driven away in the championship, Ryan, and this is looking really good to clinch this one. Already clinched it, actually, and today was just a formality to show up and race and also pick up another win.
And put on a show for us to boot, because that's exactly what Honor and Mia Rose did. That was a great battle we saw from those two. Looks like that one little slip up a moment ago from Mia is going to keep her out of a shot to win this race in the final lap. But Cavillon, definitely the class of the field all season long in GT4. This will be her 4th win of the season.
4th win in 5 points rounds. Honor Cavillon out of the final corner wins the FCP Euro GT World Challenge America Esports Championship in the GT4 category. Lights flashing, celebration and elation for Honor Cavillon teammate Mia Rose. About a second short, but an epic battle here at Imola today for those two teammates. What a race, what a drive. That was one of the most entertaining races of the season, Ryan, at a beautiful international racetrack. And there's no better place to end this. And look at this, these two teammates after the checkers celebrating here. Let's have a look at our race results. Of course, Cody Blanton led all 35 laps that we ran this afternoon, and he did such an amazing job. Kondachilou, though, championship winner here in GT3.
Got it done. Great recovery after 2 subpar rounds. The last 2 races were not good for Michael Kondachilou. Some of it was of his making, other parts of it absolutely were not, but was able to put that behind him and put together a nearly flawless run to second place, which was more than enough to clinch the title. I do think, looking at the final results, that Simard will lose 2 spots here with that post-race penalty. I think both Barman and McMillan will end up jumping, and indeed we see that now here in the final results. So Barman able to get up onto the podium, another our top three in points, actually, interestingly enough, will make up our podium in the final race here. That's fitting in some respects. McMillan turned in a great drive of the day as far as I'm concerned, starting as far back as he did to get up to fourth. And then Simard couldn't quite get up there and had the penalty hold him back a little bit. But the best non-Mercedes runner, one of the fastest drivers we've seen all season, just couldn't quite put it all together this year as far as the championship bid, but something positive to take into the off-season with a fifth-place finish.
And looking down at GT4, of course, Honor Cavillon, Mia Rose, and Simon Fisher bringing up third place in GT4. What a battle that was today. And you had mentioned earlier that the GT4 races have not been particularly close this season, but that was really entertaining. I would argue even more exciting at the front than it was in GT3. So those two teammates had a good scrap there, Ryan, but of course, Honor Cavillon putting on a clinic this season in the championship.
Absolutely. Just a great drive. Won the first three races. Probably could have won the fourth one that she didn't win. She ended up winning her fourth race here. But the fourth round of the season had a great qualifying effort, but something happened on the first lap at Laguna Seca, got knocked all the way back and put on a remarkable drive to get back up onto the podium, ultimately finished third in that race. I think made a pass on the last lap or second to last lap to make sure she was on the podium in every single race this year. And think about all that we've been through, whether we're talking about weather or just the ebbs and flows of multi-class racing, and to have all of those different things that could have gone wrong and still finish on the podium in each of the 5 races, that's really remarkable. And had a great run at the non-championship round at Spa as well, our endurance race. So just a comprehensive 2020-2021 season for Honor Cavillon.
And having a look here at our CrowdStrike Fastest Lap Award, Nick McMillan, we talked about his epic drive today. A 1:41.952 is where Nick McMillan will grab the CrowdStrike Fastest Lap. We're going to move on now to our post-race show, and we're going to talk first with Honor Cavillon, who was the winner in GT4, not only in the race, but also in the championship. Honor Cavillon here with us now. Honor, congratulations. What a successful season and an epic battle today with a teammate. Tell us about you, not only this afternoon here at Imola, but also the season and the absolute clinic that you put on in this championship.
Thanks. Yeah, today was really fun. I'm really happy about the result. And yeah, the season I just did my best to get on pole and then hold the lead until the end of the race. So Laguna Seca, where I had a lot of troubles, but I took the title, and so mitigates a bit the blow of that race, I think.
Well, take us through the battle with the teammate. I know there was a little bit of contact there. How much fun is that, and how frustrating is that to have a teammate that is as good as Mia Rose and to lean on each other that much? Is that a trust thing? Are you able to race like that, or was that a hairy moment every time you went through that first chicane?
Oh, no, we trust each other. It was... we went all out mostly because, yeah, the title was already in for me, so there was no reason to hold back. We had a bit of a gap to P3, so even more reason to not hold back. Just not take each other out, obviously.
Well, Nor, thanks so much for talking to us. Congratulations. Any final thoughts on this season? And, of course, I know that next year we've got some other stuff on the horizon. Would you plan to come back and maybe defend your title in 2021?
Oh, absolutely. I'd love to do that.
All right, Honor, congratulations. Enjoy it. That was a fun race to watch from here in the booth. Congratulations, and hopefully we'll see you around.
Thanks.
All right, we're going to move on now to Cody Blanton. Hey, Cody, you got a copy?
Hey, you got you loud and clear.
Hey,
Can you
Cody.
hear me?
Well, congratulations on winning that race from flag to flag today, winning the FCP Euro GT World Challenge America Esports finale here at Imola. Tell me about your afternoon. I mean, you obviously drove away, but it was watching in the mirror for anybody chasing you down and trying to negotiate traffic. Take us through your afternoon.
Yeah, I think what kind of worked to my advantage is not really having much pressure coming into today. So just trying to go out there and win the race, and then see where the chips fell when it came to the championship. And yeah, just happy to get the race win. I think I just happened to put in a really good lap in Q and made it out of turn 1 alive and on the first lap of the race. And yeah, just thankfully kind of had it easy today. But just want to give a big shout out to Michael for winning the championship. Good job, man.
Take us back through that qualifying effort. Obviously, the rain sort of threw a loop in it for everybody. What was going through your mind during qualifying, and what were your expectations for the race? Were you expecting rain, and would that have changed maybe some strategy on your end?
Yeah, I knew pretty much because it started raining a few minutes before the end of GT4. I knew that the track was going to transition really quickly, so I knew that the wet tires are going to have to be used for our part of qualifying, and so I kind of let everybody go out at the start. Didn't get the tire pressures right on the first run, set a decent banker, but yeah, thankfully had enough time to just go back out, adjust the pressures, and just set that lap at the end to take pole. And yeah, and then the race just went really well.
Cody, congratulations. It was an epic drive today through all the traffic and the changing conditions. A winner here in the FCP Euro GT World Challenge America Esports Championship. Thanks so much for talking to us, and hopefully we'll see you around in the next season.
Yep, thank you very much.
Thank you. We're going to move on now to Michael Kondakcioglu, who won the championship. It was a little bit close, maybe closer than you wanted it to be, especially with those you were battling in the championship right with you for the entire race. A second-place result today, but a championship after 5 rounds. Take us through not only this afternoon and battling, especially with Troy Barman, but also your championship as a whole this season.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, it was super close, the battle of the championship going into every single race, and the last race today was no different. So it was, you know, it was super tough to hold on to it, but we got it done. And first of all, I want to say congrats to Cody on the race when he deserved that one today, and or on the GT4 win as well. And yeah, but the race today, it was, yeah, I was trying to play it safe the entire time. You know, Troy was defending really hard, rightfully so, because trying to defend or beat me for the championship. But close battles the entire 5 races. It was just fantastic racing the entire time. So glad I could be a part of it.
Take us back through those multiple battles you had with Troy Barman off into turn number 2, the braking zone into the chicane. So many times Barman went defensive. How frustrating was that to know that Barman was going defensive perfectly in line with the rules, but you couldn't find a way around it? Was that a frustration, or was that just part of racing here in GT3 in this championship?
You know, that's just part of racing, but I wasn't actually frustrated because I knew if we kept the way we were, then I would have still come away with the win. So the entire race was mainly just me trying to be safe, and when the move became available, I went for it because I pulled up all the way alongside him into turn 1. So you kind of got to go for it at that point, but I was fully content to just sit behind him as well.
Well, you didn't sit behind anybody in the championship, so congratulations on that, and it was certainly well-deserved, especially with the level of competition that we have here in this championship. So, Michael, congratulations. Hopefully we'll see you around again. Thanks for talking to us, and thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. I hope so, too.
All right, have a good one.
Broadcast.
Talk to you. All right, Ryan, we're going to move on and continue with the post-race show here. One last look at our race results here, but of course the championship going to Kondakcioglu and to Honor Cavillon. A very, very exciting championship, and I know that 2021, not a lot of details yet, but I'm curious as to what viewers at home want to see for season number 3.
Yeah, me too. I'm excited that there's something that there's interest in from the viewership side, but also from the SRO side. It's been a real privilege to be a part of this, something that's new for the SRO, certainly on the American side of the SRO umbrella. And I've really enjoyed it. Working with you, Kyle, it's been a blast, and we've had great racing. It's been a ton of fun getting introduced to some new folks that I've not been exposed to before, primarily covering the physical world of motorsports, but to see what's out there in the esports realm, it's really been eye-opening. So many good drivers, so many good teams, such great talent, and we had it all on display for us over the course of this season. 2 very deserving champions in Michael Kondakcioglu and Honor Cavillon. I think on balance, both of them were the strongest in their respective classes throughout the course of the season, and they both have to be commended for putting together the championship bids that they did.
And, of course, another huge thank you to the partners that have come on board for Season 2 here of the FCP Euro GT World Challenge America Esports Championship. Of course, FCP Euro, Liqui Moly, Corteco, Asus Republic of Gamers, Fanatec, Champion Motorsports for supplying us the servers and the operations here, AWS, CrowdStrike, Pirelli, Rebellion, Total, and, of course, the platform that we're using here, Assetto Corsa Competizione, a spectacular racing simulator. I recommend everybody download and give a try because it is one of the premier racing simulators that you can do at home. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us here for these 5 rounds plus the 6-hour enduro we did at Spa about a month ago. Thank you so much for joining us. Hopefully we'll see you again in 2021. Make sure that you leave comments and tell us what you'd like to see in season number 3 of the FCP Euro GT World Challenge America Esports Championship. Thank you so much, everybody. We'll see you next time here on GT World. My name's Kyle Heyer with Ryan Marine. We'll see you next time in this championship.
Welcome to FCP Euro. Here we are in the Motorsport Garage. This is where we house our 2 Volkswagen GTI TCRs, as well as our C300 Endurance Racer right behind me. Now what's special about this space is this is actually part of our headquarters. So right to the right we have our retail center where enthusiasts come in every day to come pick up the parts they need to repair their European car. And what's even better is right behind us is our distribution center. This is where thousands of packages are picked, packed, and shipped every single day to enthusiasts like you around the world. Now, this year has been a little different for us. Due to COVID, we've stayed safe and we've stayed here and we haven't participated in events. That said, we have tried to participate from afar, either digitally or dipping our toes into e-racing and other things like that. Now, next year, we cannot wait to get back out into events and meet all of you in person. So if you just want to browse parts for your European car or you want to learn more about our motorsports team, please head over to fcpeuro.com.